If you're like most people, you might think that your biggest problem is not yet having all of the things that you want in life. More money, a better body, a different relationship, maybe a different life. But I'm here to tell you that's not actually the problem. The real problem, the one almost no one talks about, is that we spend so much energy wishing that things were different than they are, wishing that reality was different than it is. And that turns out to be the most reliable way for you to stay unhappy. So today I want to talk about what I call arguing with reality, why it never works, and how understanding what I call the hourglass of life completely changes the way you experience the present moment. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers just like you who feel stuck bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick for good, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. There are literally infinite ways that things could have been. And there are infinite ways that things could be. But there is only one way that things are. And the most surefire path for you to be discontent and unhappy in life is by wanting things to be different than they are. You want more money than you have. You want your relationship to be different than it is. You want your body to look different than it does. All of that is what I call arguing with reality. You want things to be one way, but they are another. Reality says, this is what's here. This is how it is. And we respond with, no, it shouldn't. I don't want it. I wish it wasn't. But every ounce of energy that you spend wishing the present was anything other than it is energy that can never pay you back. It's gone. It's wasted. The now, the present, cannot change. You can change the future, and we'll get to that. But the future, whether it's a second or a decade from now, is still not now. Hey, real quick. We'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now, I have to ask you for a huge favor. If you're getting value out of this episode so far, take 2 seconds and share it with a friend. I mean, right now, literally, hit the little share button and send it in a text to your roommate or your cousin or your mom or your brother or your sister. Seriously, spread the love. If you like what you're hearing, then that's the best way that you can show support for this show. Because maybe you're like Eliza Kay, who said, this podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me. Or you're like Dalton, who said, Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen. Don't you want to share this awesomeness with your friends and family? Don't be a gatekeeper. It only takes a second. It helps me grow and reach a new audience, and you seem like a genius friend who recommends new, awesome podcasts. We all win. All right, go send that text, and now, let's get back to the show. And this is where so many people find themselves stuck, and that's a big problem. Because when you're stuck wanting things to be different than they are, happiness for you is literally unachievable. It's not delayed, it's not hard to find, it's literally impossible. The other day, I was walking through New York City and just watching as hundreds, maybe even thousands of people just rushing around, going from A to B, heads down, headphones in, barking into their phones, firing off emails and texts mid-stride. Everyone's in a hurry. Somehow, everyone's late. Everyone looks like they're chasing something. They're on their way. They've got places to be. And then I noticed a homeless man just sitting on a bench. He wasn't begging. He wasn't pacing or panhandling. He was just kind of existing. And someone walking by dropped a newspaper near him, and he picked it up and he started reading it. Just calm, smiling, seemingly completely unbothered by the chaos that was surrounding him. I'm sure he's used to it, living in New York City, but it was an interesting juxtaposition. And I was confronted with this uncomfortable thought. Who has life more figured out right now? Was it these executives sprinting to meetings, the middle managers juggling stress and debt and expectations, or the guy who was just sitting there, content with having nothing? Now, let me be clear. I'm making a lot of assumptions. I don't know that this guy was actually content. He sure looked it. And I don't know that the people rushing around looking angry were actually angry or unhappy. I don't know anything about any of them. But let's just say for the sake of this argument that I'm right. How does someone with nothing feel more at ease than people with money, career, status, homes? Well, it all comes down to one word: and that word is acceptance. If discontent comes from wanting things to be different than they are, then contentment comes from accepting what is. Not liking it, not approving of it, not deciding that it's permanent, just accepting it as it is right now in this moment. Which importantly does not mean accepting that it will be like this forever, although it does mean accepting that it very well could be. And I know that's a lot, but this is nothing new. The Buddha taught that suffering, or dukkha, comes from craving and aversion, wanting reality to be other than it is. This is known in Buddhism as the second noble truth. The Stoic teacher Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." And the great emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The Tao teaches, "Those who flow as life flows know they need no other force." And the Tao Te Ching says, "When you accept yourself, the whole world accepts you." And in Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita says, "You have a right to action, but not to the fruits of action." And in the Bible, Paul wrote in Philippians 4:11, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances." These are different cultures, different centuries, all the same conclusion. And if you prefer a more recent take, psychologist Stephen Hayes, the creator of acceptance and commitment therapy, put it this way: suffering is not caused by events, but by the rigid attachment to unworkable control strategies. That line matters, because it's not about wanting less, it is about attaching less. And here's where people start to get tripped up, so listen close, because I don't want that to be you. It's not that wanting things are bad. And it's not that acceptance automatically makes you happy. We're not that simple. We're humans. We're complex. The issue is the emotional attachment to outcomes that you cannot control. And the annoying thing about outcomes, unfortunately, is that just about all of them are outside of your control. I want it to rain gumdrops instead of rain. It would be incredible. I'd put out a bucket, free candy every time the clouds come. Honestly, I think the world would be a better place. And I'm allowed to want that. I can wish for it. I can write Santa a letter about it. None of that is a problem. The problem only starts when I emotionally attach to the outcome. Because now my emotional state depends on something I cannot control. If it rains gumdrops, great, I'm happy. But if it doesn't, that's unfair. Life sucks. I'm upset. That's not hope. That's gambling with my emotional well-being. And people do this every day with money, relationships, success, recognition, and change in general. You put your money into a business in the hopes that it does well. But businesses succeed or fail for countless reasons, none of which being your hopes and dreams. You decide you want to eat healthy to lose some weight. But the human body is complex, and sometimes all of your best laid plans don't end up giving you the surefire results you thought you'd get. You have to be okay with that. You have to accept it all possibilities, the good and the bad. And when you do that, you can never be disappointed. Now, this is usually where people start to push back. And they say, don't we need desires to drive us? Why would I do the diet if I didn't want to lose weight? Why would I start the business if I didn't expect to make money? Isn't this whole thing about growing and changing, and don't I need expectations for that? And to that I say yes, absolutely. But wanting without attachment is very different from wanting with attachment. And this is a paradox that most people miss. Acceptance is not the opposite of change. Acceptance is the starting point for effective change. And that brings us to what I call the hourglass of life. Picture an hourglass. The top is full of sand. That represents the past. The bottom is also full of sand, and that represents the future. The top half, containing millions, maybe billions of little specks, are all possibilities, the way things could have been. If only it were like this. If I knew then what I knew now. If I had done this instead of that. If it went like this, then it would be like that, and a million other ways that things could have gone. The bottom half contains billions more. The future contains infinite possibilities, because anything could happen, literally. But in the middle of an hourglass, the glass narrows. There's a choke point, so tight that only a single grain of sand can pass through. And that point is the present. Yes, there are infinite ways that things might be in the future. And yes, there are infinite stories about how things were, and infinite possibilities of how things could have been. But right now, in this moment, there is only the way things are. And that is the hourglass of reality. Everything passes through that one choke point, that one moment. There are no shortcuts around it. There is no escape hatch. You can influence the future. You can interpret the past, but the present can never be anything other than it is. You cannot argue it into being something else. And trying to do so is the fastest route you can take to exhaustion, resentment, and a life half-lived. So in closing, acceptance doesn't mean that you stop striving. It means that you stop fighting with what already exists. It means you reclaim your energy. And it means your happiness isn't hostage to outcomes outside of your control. And once you stop arguing with reality, something surprising happens. You finally have the clarity and the freedom to change what actually can be changed. That's the power of understanding the hourglass of life. And the sooner you stop fighting the narrow point in the middle, the more fully you get to live and experience everything on either side of it. So my action step for you today is simple. Accept the way things are. If you want to change something, great. Make a plan, change it in the future, and act. But detach from the expectation of how things need to be and accept that everything is divinely perfect and see how much ease can come over your life. That is change made easy. Before you go, I just have to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed or got value from this episode at all, then take a moment and leave a rating and review in the podcast app that you're listening or watching on. If you like the show and you want me to continue to create more episodes and be able to get awesome guests that will help make changing your life easier, then this is the best way you can show support. You can leave a 5-star review on iTunes like Eliza K, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Thank you, Eliza. Or you can be like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Thank you, Dalton. And thank you to all of the over 100 people who have taken the time to rate and review this show 5 stars on iTunes, or the dozens who have left 5-star reviews on Spotify. It only takes a minute, and it helps me grow, it helps me reach a new audience, and it lets me know that this is helping someone, which just feels good. All you have to do is go to the show page of whatever app you're listening to and hit the little 5 stars. Or go to the comments section on YouTube and boom, that's it. And if you really want to show love, take a screenshot when you do it and tag me in your stories on social media at Change Made Easy, and I'll shout you out in an upcoming episode. All right, go leave that rating, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday with new episodes of Change Made Easy.